So the full card has been announced by Dana White for UFC 306, also known as Riyadh Season Noche UFC, taking place in the Sphere, and it probably will be one of the most exciting cards of the year, especially when it comes around in a venue such as the Sphere. Apparently they've invested millions of dollars into just creating this incredible card with this incredible atmosphere. I'm very much looking forward to seeing it, but we didn't know for sure what the card was going to be until very recently Dana White did announce it. Now in this video I wanted to talk about every fight that's been announced, and I also want to talk about every fight that has been announced prior to the announcement, if that makes any sense whatsoever, as well as just a couple of extra fights. You know, Burt MMA just posted that we now have Kayla Harrison's next fight at UFC 307, and also there have been a bunch of other exciting additions to the cards that I haven't really just made videos about, so I'm going to do that in this video as well. Hopefully that makes sense. I'm going to try and make it quick, but let's talk about the big one, or I guess one of the two really major announcements. The main event of 306 is going to be Sean O'Malley versus Merab. Highly anticipated, I guess you could almost say somewhat expected as well at this point. As much as Merab is a very frustrating fighter to watch, he is a very talented guy, and I do think that he is a nightmare stylistically for someone like Sean O'Malley, who is pretty much a pure striker. But it's not like we haven't seen Merab get hurt on the feet before, so I could see an argument for Merab losing this matchup. I think you would have to pick Sean O'Malley to win by knockout. O'Malley got Aljo pretty nicely with a very clean counter, just dominated Chito Vera, so he's got some pretty good momentum. Merab just defeated Henry Cejudo in a fight which I think that a lot of people could actually look at and maybe see potential holes for O'Malley to exploit, and what I mean by that is it's not like we didn't see Merab get hurt in the first round by Cejudo with the exact same combination that, if I'm not mistaken, I believe Petr Yan landed on Merab, so maybe there's a weakness in like this combination that we could see out of O'Malley, but I am going to go with a low confidence prediction, very early prediction of course, giving my thoughts on the fight right now. Very low confidence pick in Merab. I think the wrestling's going to be too much, man. I know O'Malley's got great takedown defense, but against Merab, is it really going to matter? I think he attempted like 30 something takedowns against Yan, failed literally all of them, and still won anyway. So you don't need to get takedowns to win fights, apparently. And then the co-main event, we've got Grasso fighting Shevchenko for the third time now. Both times I have picked Valentina Shevchenko, and I'll probably just do it again. I'll be honest, I think that the rematch is definitely kind of going to give you more confidence to actually pick Grasso, but the thing about Shevchenko is she's kind of crazy, and I feel like now that she's like got one last chance at getting the belt, I feel like there's just kind of no way that Shevchenko is ever going to overlook Grasso again. And I think that Shevchenko can incorporate some wrestling, which she had found a lot of success in the first fight and the second fight against Grasso. I know that she got submitted, but it was because of a mistake that she made. And I think that Grasso, although Grasso has shown multiple times now that she is a very, very difficult fight for Shevchenko on the feet, Shevchenko has shown that she is willing to take the fight down to the ground if she needs to, and I think that's what's going to take to beat Grasso and win this trilogy here at UFC 306. There is a lot of other things going into this fight though, such as Shevchenko didn't want to fight against Grasso at UFC 306, so that could be something there, who knows, but I'm still going to go with Shevchenko. Maybe that's a silly pick and a lot of people disagree. I can understand, but honestly, I just think Shevchenko can win it, honestly. Now we move on to Ortega versus Lopez. Has been rebooked originally for UFC 303, and now it's been booked again for UFC 306, and I will admit, after watching Lopez versus Ige, and I understand this is very, very unfair for me to say this about Lopez, I actually am less confident in him defeating Brian Ortega, and the reason why is just because we did see Lopez really get pushed pretty hard in that fight, but you can't take it away from him. He did have to cut weight multiple times. There were multiple weight class changes in that matchup as well, and he had a lot to deal with, and he still managed to go out there and beat a very game Dan Ige, who was in fight camp at the time. I still think Lopez beats Brian Ortega, but what I really noticed about that Dan Ige fight is that I don't think Lopez's striking is actually as good as I thought it was. I knew it was sloppy. I've always known it was sloppy. If you watch any of his fights prior to actually coming into the UFC, especially his Contender Series fight, you can tell he doesn't really have the best technique, but he does move forward a lot, throws with a lot of power. But I still think that in this matchup, I think his size advantage actually probably will give him some trouble for Ortega. I think he'll have to deal with the power coming back at him. And I also think that the grappling, although Ortega probably is the best pure grappler at 145 pounds, Lopez is a good grappler, man. He had Danny Gay in submissions, he had Moise Evloev in submissions, he'd won submissions prior. I just think that we are probably going to see Diego Lopez go out there and beat Brian Ortega, but I don't think it's going to be as confident as I originally was. I originally was very high confidence in Lopez to beat Ortega that first time around. And now we've got a banger. I mean, Esteban Riyadh, if you guys don't know, is a fan favorite of mine. I love Esteban Riyadh. As soon as I watched his fight against Thomas Paul in the Contender Series, my goodness, man, I just jumped on that hype train, and I haven't really jumped off. But the problem is he still has disappointed me a little bit with his performances in the UFC. If you watch his fight against Thomas Paul, oh my goodness, it's awesome, it's amazing, it's a great fight. But then he goes out there and he loses to Loic Radzhabov in a very close decision. But then he bounced back. But he got controlled against Kamala Kirk for a whole round, and then he beat Terence McKinney. So, and everyone's knocking out Terence McKinney at the moment, so I don't really know how much I can really put into that. So, I'm looking at Daniel Zellhuber. You look at him, and you look at his Trey Ogden fight, and you think, my goodness, that's embarrassing. But it hasn't aged that badly, and Zellhuber's looked good recently, and I think, honestly, I'm going to side with Daniel Zellhuber. And no, am I? Because the thing is, Daniel Zellhuber's going to be trying to go out there and keep it technical and fight from range. Whereas Riyadh, he fights, he's so fun, man. He fights like an idiot, is where I'm getting to, and he just runs forward and he's bombing away. So maybe he could set something up, but I think there is going to be a size advantage significantly actually here for Daniel Zellhuber, because he is pretty big for 155. I think he's actually fought lower, but Riyadh is not a big lightweight at all. So I feel like I'm going to go with the range of Zellhuber, kind of picking apart Esteban Riyadh, but this is a banger. This is such a good fight. If it is on the main card, I'd be quite happy to see it on the main card. And then Irene Aldana is going to be fighting against Norma Dumont. Makes sense. Irene Aldana, she is from Mexico. She actually might retire after this one because she's getting pretty old. I think she's like 38 years old, if I'm not mistaken, so that's pretty old for a woman's bantamweight, so maybe just using UFC 306 is like the perfect time to retire could be pretty cool. Another thing I want to say as well is this is at women's bantamweight. I believe Norma Dumont has been fighting at bantamweight recently, which is very good for her, but she has always been a woman's featherweight. She's always kind of been that sort of size for a weight class. Now she's cut down to 135 because women's 145 is no longer, but both of these girls, you can't really trust them to make weight at 135 too much. If you guys don't know, I believe Norma Dumont missed weight against Yana Kunitskaya or Yana Santos, and I think that she both missed weight, and so it's just a catch weight. Same sort of thing against her fight with Macy Chiasson. I believe they both missed weight as well. So, yeah, I don't know. This is a risky one, I feel like, to kind of put on the main card because they really could potentially both miss weight. I'm going to talk about these fights here in a second, but I just want to quickly go over the current UFC 306 card. Mikael Pereira versus Hernandez is no longer on this card. This is now the main event. If I can go back to Burt MMA's card to Instagram, it's October 19th, main event. I'll be honest, heartbroken about it. Like, I understand why you want it to be a main event. I guess maybe they just didn't have anything else for the card, but like, I'm kind of like looking at this and I'm like, this card needs Mikael Pereira versus Hernandez because that's a banger, man. And Mikael Pereira, he's exciting, but I like the fact that both of them are still going to get that opportunity in the main event. Yasmin Jauregui versus Ketlin Souza. I do think this is a Jauregui win. I do think Edgar Chairez beats Kevin Borjas as well. Kevin Borjas, as I have kind of said before, I'm not that high on him. I don't think he's a good grappler. If Edgar Chairez can use that massive size advantage that he's going to have in this fight, he should be able to get the fight down to the ground. He should be able to get the submission. Now, the Luis Rodriguez, I guess his name is Ronaldo Rodriguez now, versus Ode Osbourne fight is interesting because Ode Osbourne has... I know that he's lost a lot in the UFC, but he still has impressed me a lot in some ways. He's got very fast boxing, and he is a solid striker. And Luis Rodriguez, who did he fight? Was it Dennis Bondar in his debut, and it looked really bad? Yeah, I will admit he looked terrible in that fight, but I also will put my hand up and say I picked Bondar as well. But that's because if you watch Luis Rodriguez's regional fights, man, this guy doesn't look good. But I think he might be able to get past Ode Osborne. I don't know about that one at all, guys. And then banger, Manuel Torres versus Bahamondes. I'm gonna just have to go with Bahamondes, man. I know that he's looked bad recently. I actually think he's on a little bit of a slide right now. You know, he just lost that one fight to Klein, and then he won against Giagos. Okay, I'm yapping. I'm just straight yapping. But I do think he beats Torres. Now, this is going to be a controversial one for sure. But I think he's going to be much more technical and will be able to fight from range. So I like that fight a lot, actually. And then Raul Rosas Jr.'s fighting Archie Lang. Archie Lang's just not a grappler. Raul Rosas Jr. should probably submit him in the first round, let's be honest. Now, Marcel Dorf, a big Marcel. Guram Kutatelidze fighting against Jordan Vasenik. Absolutely love the fact that they've signed Jordan Vasenik, but I will admit, ever since he lost to Paul Hughes, Cage Warriors have been just kind of giving him some pretty favourable matchups the whole time, so he can eventually get this opportunity, and he has. He is a very talented fighter, though I do think he is quite good, but here's the problem. He's a featherweight, fighting at lightweight, against Guram. Now, has Guram looked that good recently? Not really. I think the last fight he actually fought was against Alves Brenner, and he didn't, well, he did get the takedowns, but he didn't. I think in this one, though, he should be able to wrestle Vasenik. I do like Vasenik as a sign-in a lot, but I think I like him a lot more at 145 than at 155. So I'm going to have to go with Guram in that one. Jack Jenkins now has a replacement opponent. His original opponent was Gavin Tucker, and it's a good fight for Jack, let's be honest. Harold Durns, no cardio at all. He's a very solid grappler, though. I actually think, like his brother Gilbert, he does hold like a national grappling title or something like that. But he's just got no cardio, man, and that's what Jack Jenkins does, is he kicks the legs, he kicks the body. He's going to sap that cardio for Herbert Burns, and I think he's going to be able to get a good win there. Iho Porteria is just speedrunning CTE at this point, literally fighting a guy that has a win over Alex Pereira in kickboxing. He's going to get knocked out. He literally got knocked out by Mikhail Pereira just a few months ago. Who is his manager? He's also been knocked out multiple times in the UFC as it is. Yikes. Yikes. UFC 307. Okay, they're setting something up for Cesar Almeida here. Now we have Danny Barlow fighting against Nikolai Veretennikov. Short notice replacement fight. I actually think this is soon. It's August 10th, so in about 2 weeks or so from the time that I record and upload this video. Danny Barlow, I'm a fan of Danny Barlow, honestly. He's got big power, likes to knock people out, beat that roid cheat Josh Quinlan, so I'll always respect him for doing that. And now he's fighting against Nikolai Veretennikov, who was on the Contender Series and lost to Michael Morales, and since then he's kind of bounced back with a couple good wins. Veretennikov, he's also a brawler. I mean, this is going to be a dinger. I know a lot of people won't know who Nikolai Veretennikov is, but that's why you watch Artem MMA, because I do nothing aside from watching MMA. So, yeah, Veretennikov's a brawler on the feet, and he can wrestle. He does have good wrestling. I wouldn't say he's got great wrestling. And against Danny Barlow, if he's going to brawl with Danny Barlow, he's probably going to get knocked out. So he's probably going to want to look to wrestle here. He's pretty old. I think he's 34 years old at this point. So it really was now or never for him. And I will be honest, the odds for this one might be a little bit wide. Veretennikov is no bum, man. He's no slouch. I believe he took the first round off Michael Morales. He's a good fighter. He's solid. And speaking of him, we're literally talking about him right now. Michael Morales is fighting Neil Magny. Neil Magny just doesn't decline fights, does he? I do like Michael Morales a lot. I think that he has had some performances where he hasn't looked that good. I think the fight against Trevin Giles was a little bit of a wake-up call for a lot of people. The fight against Max Griffin, you can't pretend like Max Griffin didn't give him any trouble, but for the most part, Morales did really control the center of that cage. Morales does have wrestling as well. Now, I do understand that a national championship in freestyle wrestling in Ecuador probably doesn't hold up the same as a national championship in freestyle wrestling in the USA, but he still is at one point the best wrestler in Ecuador, so that does mean something. I believe he's also a national kickboxing champion, or maybe it's Muay Thai, but he likes to control the cage a lot, and this is where I think he's going to give Magny a lot of problems. I think this is actually a similar matchup. Oh, you guys are gonna have to just let me cook, alright? Because this might be controversial. I think this fight could look similar to Ian Gary versus Neil Magny. Just the way that Michael Morales likes to control the center of the octagon, and he's going to make Neil Magny be kind of walking around. And I think the whole time, Morales is just going to be kicking the body, kicking the legs, controlling the octagon, fighting from range. And I think it could be a long night for Magny, man. But we just saw him come back, and we just saw Neil Magny beat Mike Muller. So Who knows, but I don't think this is going to be like a situation where we see Michael Morales reach someone he can't defeat. I do think that Michael Morales right now, because he's, 24 years old, probably will run into someone that's going to be a very tough matchup for him sooner rather than later, just because he's so young and developing. But we are looking at like one of the better prospects on the planet right now with Michael Morales. He is a very good fighter. Rongju just won the Road to UFC tournament after being released from the UFC. He won the tournament at lightweight, defeated Shin Haraguchi to do it, my boy, and he's back. Now he's fighting against Chris Padilla, who got a massive win recently, just submitted James Lontop on short notice. Very good win for him, and it's a good fight. I like Rongju though. I do. I understand that Chris Padilla's got like a massive fan base and people love him. I respect it. I do. Rongju's shown so much improvement since being released from the UFC, man. Like, if you actually watch his fights in the UFC, you can tell that he just didn't have the experience to be in there, man. Like, he was like 21 years old or something. I believe he trains at the PI. That UFC PI in Shanghai is doing some incredible improvement for a lot of these fighters, man. Like, Zhu Kangxie is going to be someone. Wang Tiong is actually in the UFC right now, makes her debut pretty soon, has a win over Shevchenko in kickboxing. My goodness, there are some very good Chinese fighters coming out of that Shanghai PI, and I do think that we might see Rongju be one of them. I think he can win this one here. Bad matchup for Yasmin Lucindo, in my opinion. I don't actually know what the general consensus is. People calling it a banger. I think it is a banger. I think it is a banger. Someone says Marina exposes her. I don't like using that terminology, but I kind of do think that. If you want my opinion on Yasmin Lucindo, I just think that she's too sloppy on the feet. And I think that Marina's going to be too technical for her, and I do think we probably will see Marina Rodriguez win a decision. Ruzaboev's manager hates him. I think Renat beats him. I don't like Ruzaboev at 170 at all. He is a middleweight. I understand he's a very thin dude. He's a middleweight. He's not a welterweight. And then we have banger. I mean, in the Apex again. Why are we doing this? True the Peak versus Yanal Ishmuz. Both of these guys are going to swing and bang. Man, True the Peak's been looking good recently, though. He has been making a lot of very good improvements, I think. But I think I might still have to go with Yanal Ishmuz. He's pretty talented. Just a gimme fight for Morgan Charrier. Dude, like, the thing is about AJ Cunningham is I do have a lot of respect for him, as he has dealt with a lot more adversity in his life than, like, anyone could probably ever comprehend. But the truth is, if he can't get the fight down to the ground, he just doesn't have the striking, man. And that's even shown on the regional scene against guys that weren't even that good. Like, they just... Yeah, he just doesn't have the striking for the UFC, in my opinion, man. It's just a bad matchup for him. And then Sharaputdin Magomedov is fighting against Markel Olegchaychik in next weekend. Next weekend. It's just added there. I do like Sharaputdin though. I think Markel just got finished recently, didn't he? Yeah, but he looked good against Holland though, still for a moment. So it's a banger. It is a banger. But it's just a very good stylistic matchup for Sharaputdin, let's be honest. And then prior to that, I mean, this is happening literally this weekend. Banger. KSW fighter here, what's his name, Ivan Arslan. He's an older signing as well, I believe he's like 33. Fighting against Ion Kuchalaba, banger, banger, banger. These guys are going to swing and they're going to bang in the first round. And then Evloev versus Aljamain. I'm kind of siding with Evloev, but hey, if you're picking Sterling, let me know in the comments. I could be convinced. Man, there's a lot of announcements more that I haven't talked about. Banger, I do like Gijar. I also like... I don't know if I like Cody. Cody Garbrandt has got a really terrible tattoo, so that tells me that he's not in the mindset for this fight. I think Miles Johns wins. Banger. I like Inchokwani, though. Banger, kind of. I think Themba Gorimbo's fights are sometimes very fun, sometimes not very. I think Themba should be able to still win with the wrestling, because that's what he goes to. This is Wang Tiong, who I was telling you about before. No, Tiong... Oh my goodness, I said her name wrong, sorry. Yeah, Wang Tiong is fighting against Victoria Leonardo. I think she's going to get a finish. I think she's going to knock her out. Good fight, good fight. That's kind of it, really, I guess. Yeah, Petrosky just getting a layup. Anyway, I'll see you guys in the next video. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you in the next one.